Right. Welcome back to our third installment this evening of the Enneagram interview series that I'm running with Elizabeth Devlin, a trained Enneagram teacher and an author. She's been teaching for well over 25 years. So I'm really looking forward to welcoming her in this section that we're going to be bringing public now. So, Liz, last week you spoke mainly about the map, and then you spoke about how the Enneagram can really help us explore our inner maps. Now, this week we're going to be touching on I know is a subject that you're quite passionate about, and you're focusing on the head, heart, and the gut as organs of perception. You did tell me that during the course of the evening you want to kind of look at three different segments where you're going to be first looking at the head, heart, and the gut as organs of perception. And then you're going to be looking at receptors and the role that they play in this regard. And then thirdly, you're going to then be looking at how these organs of perception are densely populated with these receptors and how this assists our understanding and our awareness. So welcome, Elizabeth. Glad that you're here this evening. And we've already got a viewer who's signed in. Hi, Dawn. Nice to see you. So, Liz, I'm going to be bringing on the diagram that you asked me to share. And it's got that Enneagram diagram that we used last week with the head, heart, and the gut added to it. Can you describe for us, so that we can get an understanding of this, how the head, heart, and the gut are organs of perception? I'm going to, can you see that, Liz?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And
I'm going to make
you
a bit. I'm going to make you bigger so that you can talk to the slide.
Okay. Thank you, Tanya, and welcome to whoever's watching. I think the most important thing to remember in this section is that we all have a mental center, although some of us use it more than others. We all have a heart center, and some of us use that more than others. And we all have an instinctual center. And again, some of us use that more than others. But the important thing to remember is we all, as humans, we all have all three centers. We can't function without a brain or a heart or a gut, as far as I'm aware anyway.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks for explaining that so beautifully. So now I wanted to know, how does this work? How is it that we would use one center more than the other?
Okay. I think the interesting thing I want to point out at the moment is that each one of these three centers, the brain, the heart, and the gut, they all vibrate at a different frequency, as does every organ in our body. They all have a different frequencies, and they're a little bit like radio stations that we can tune into, and others can tune into as well. So the important thing to remember is, when we touch on this later, is that the heart has its own frequency, the brain has a certain frequency, and the gut has a certain frequency. And it's in one of these centers that our greatest gifts lie. So we all have a physical brain in our head. We all think and we all have thoughts, but these tend to become habitual. So I need to look at myself and say, what type of thoughts are forever running around in my head? Am I always perceiving danger and thinking about threat or possible threat? Or are my thoughts continually running around what is wrong with life or relationships or the project, and with a need to improve? Or am I always having thoughts of, how do I avoid this conflict, this potential conflict that's even on the horizon isn't even here yet? Or what type of thoughts are always running around in my head? And I need to be aware of this because it's in me and they are habitual. I also need to be aware of the feelings, the habitual feelings that emerge in my heart. So what feelings would they be? Do I tend to have access to anger? That doesn't mean I act it out. None of this means I act it out. I just need to observe what fills my heart. Do I feel angry easily? Or do I feel revenge easily? Or does my heart fill with pride and my heart is a bubble of pride? Or does my heart kind of screw up, twist with envy or jealousy? Or even is my heart filled with shame and I kind of move inwards and move away and keep my head down? This does not mean I act any of this out. It just means it's an internal process. And I must always remember, I'm just looking at these names coming up, so I want to say hi to everybody. What rises in me, I need to know myself. Do feelings of worthlessness pop up? What are the feelings that are habitual? And then in my gut, what am I sensing? I need to know, what am I sensing? Because it's in me anyway. And I think once things become habitual thought processes, habitual patterns, or habitual feelings, or habitually sensing things, then we lose a lot of our creativity because we're kind of locked down in our thinking patterns, fixated in our heart patterns, and often fixated in our gut as well. So I think we need to be aware of what's going on so we can be less habitual and more creative.
Wow.
Now, there's just sorry, can I just
Yes,
say this
sure.
here, Tanya? Our head center and our heart center, first of all, we need to become conscious. We need to be more consciously aware in head center, heart center, and or gut center.
Yes.
And the paradox I want to make here is my head center, my heart center, and my gut are already 100% conscious.
Yes.
They already are 100% conscious. It's me that's not conscious of the thoughts in my head. It's me that's not conscious of the feelings in my heart. And it's me that's not conscious of the sensations going on in my body. And that's what needs to be conscious.
Fascinating, Liz. That I really like how you've described those habitual patterns of reaction
Yes.
from either the head, the heart, and the body, which obviously we've got all of them.
Yes.
But as you say, there's one center more than the other two that kind of is the one that we're more highly attuned to. And you've also raised the point that it's that we're 100% actually, those centers are kind of aware and they are conscious, but it's us who need to become aware. So could you explore that a little bit more for us? How can we become more aware, or how can we become more conscious of these centers within us?
Okay, well, I'm going to jump a step backwards for a moment because we
Okay.
said previously that we have a gut and we have a
Mm-hmm.
heart and we have a head, a brain, for sure. But one of these centers seems to be more important to us than the other two. We
Okay.
tend to have a predominance in one center more than the other two. So the 8, 9, and 1 at the top of the Enneagram,
I'm going to
they
bring that
tend
in.
to be, they tend to be gut centered. meaning their instinctual life is alive and well, does not mean they don't think and they don't feel. The 2, 3, and 4 on the right-hand side of the diagram tend to move into the heart first and relationships first. Does not mean they don't think or they don't take action. And the 5, 6s, and 7s on the left-hand side of the diagram, they tend to live in the mental realm of existence. Doesn't mean they don't feel, and it doesn't mean they don't take action. And I think it's really important to specify that. We have one of these centers that's more vulnerable, exquisitely sensitive, and equally extremely powerful. So there's a large paradox here. We are both powerful in one center above the other two, and we are both vulnerable in that same center. And interestingly enough, we tend to be more intuitive in one center more than the other two. So it's actually up to us to ask ourselves, where do I live first? Do I first move up into my head and think about life and living and query things and question things and use a lot of logic or rationale or conceptualize and theorize with things? Is that my first frame of reference? Or is it my heart? Do I tend to move to my heart first and have feelings and emotions? Do they rise first? And is relationship really, really important to me? Or do I tend to live in my gut, live in action and my gut? And either way, we all have all three, but I need to be working on a sense of awareness. What is going on in these centers? Because it's me. You know, it's the brain and the heart and the gut are 100% conscious, and they work anyway under the radar of our consciousness. They're working 100% anyway. Excuse me. So I need to look and be observed, be observant of myself. I need to look at myself and be observant.
Okay, so thanks, Liz, for that. So I think that then comes to the next point that I'm wanting to ask you is that how do we explore how to use one above, or how do we use one above the other two?
Well,
Can you break that down a bit
excuse me.
further?
Thank you. I think that it's a natural thing. It's not something that we work on. It's totally natural. It is what it is. It's
Okay.
there. But I need to know that we all have a thought, and it flows in and it flows out. And then another thought comes in and it flows out. And another thought comes in. We all have feelings. And one feeling comes through, passes on, unless I hang on to it. Then another feeling flows through. And then I have a sensation. One sensation rises, flows through, and another sensation rises. But the question I need to ask myself is, who is the I that thinks?
Mm.
Who is the I or the me that feels? And who is the I that has sensations? And this is the deepest question, the deeper question, and the oldest question known to man. And only I can explore myself. Nobody else can explore for me. And I think it's also important that that we don't take just what somebody says. We need to do the work for ourselves and ask ourselves, do I first move up into my head? And because I spend a lot of time there and being highly intuitive, I will tend to have a lot of gifts in that area, in
Mm.
that organ. Or do I spend a lot of time in my heart and feelings? If I do, I tend to have a lot of gifts in that area. Or if I spend a lot of time in my gut and taking action, I tend to have a lot of gifts in that area. So, where do my great gifts lie?
Okay, so that's very interesting. So three of the types are, as you said, more head centered. Three are
Yes,
more gut centered, and then three are more heart centered.
yes,
Great. And I also like how you've spoken about the creativity, that this can be where we have our greatest gifts from. So it doesn't mean to say that we only overuse those centers. It's also where we kind of let our creative juices flow. And it's where we kind
yes,
of are more highly attuned to
yes.
people that we can help, to ourselves, and so forth. It's amazing. So Liz, would you like to go on to talk about receptors now?
I think I just like, yes, I will. I think I just
Okay.
like to say that because it's a given that we all have a brain and a heart and a gut, it is a given. But, and the fact that we tend to overuse one, it's all about looking internally. If I'm a
Okay.
head centered person, my tendency is for the head to overrule the heart and overrule the gut,
Okay.
because the head centered people tend to be quite scary of feelings and emotions
Mm,
and often of taking action. And so the head tends to overrule the heart and the gut. Whereas if I live in the heart centered space, then that tends to overrule. Feelings tend to overrule logical thought and often overrule taking action. And if I belong to the gut center, the 8, 9, and 1 at the top,
mhm.
then my gut can often forget about or not even go near logical thinking. And it can kind of take action before feelings emerge and direct a way forward. So we
Yeah.
need to be careful not to overuse the one center. One will always be predominant, but we must be careful not to overuse it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that does, because
I know
that's
I'm
was
jumping
what I
about a
was.
bit.
No, no, it's fine because that's actually what I was worried about. It's a good thing to point out that we can overuse it, but on the
Mm,
other hand, it is our greatest gift. So
exactly.
to kind of bring back that balance of we do also have a, say if we gut-based people, I do also have a head. I can think through things if I kind of bring my attention and awareness back. And I also have a heart, and I can also learn to discern emotions.
Yes,
So
yes,
thanks, Liz. I think that is very helpful. I just want to remind the viewers, please ask questions, please post comments. Liz will answer them at the end. We tend to finish around about 7:30, and then if there's any questions, then we will answer them to the best of our ability. But a reminder that it is an introductory session. Liz
yes,
keeps trying to remind me of this because I keep wanting to go a bit deeper. But generally speaking, if you want to learn more about the Enneagram, you do have to do more work on it yourself. There's a lot of information out there on the internet, but ideally it's best to do classes with a trained teacher, because then you can kind of get to explore it at a pace and explains from a perspective that knows the different types well, and then you can find your own place within the Enneagram. I hope I've explained that correctly, Liz.
yes. Perfect.
Great. So let's move on to the second segment, which I know that you're
Yes,
quite excited to talk about, because this, I
yes,
think, is one of your predominant, something that you've put a lot of work into, and
yes.
some insights that you've really gained as to how to explain it in terms of the Enneagram. So tell us about receptors, Liz, and
Okay.
how do they function? What is this all about?
Well, receptors. The late Dr. Candice Pert is a neuroscientist and a pharmacologist. And you might remember in the first part of this program, I spoke about being a minister. So we started our training in the ministry in 1989, and Dr. Candice Pert, along with a lot of other people, was speaking about neuroscience in 1989, and I just knew there was something there for me. You know, when you just know something, I don't know why I know or how I know, but I just knew there was something in this for me. So I've kind of just flowed with this on and off for, 30 years. But anyway, Dr. Candice Pert, neuroscientist and pharmacologist, who discovered the opiate receptor in the brain, has much to say about receptors in general. So what I would like to say is every cell of our body, and we have approximately 70 trillion cells in our body. And I also want to mention the brain is part of the body and the heart is part of the body. So there's approximately 70 trillion cells in our body, and they are covered with receptors that sit on the surface of the cell, facing outwards. Did we lose anything there?
No, we heard you.
Okay. So these are 70 trillion cells. They are covered with receptors that sit on the outside of the cell, but sometimes they go a little bit into the cell, like as if they have roots, but that's very layman's terms. They don't have roots, but they face outwards. And some cells have millions of receptors, different receptors on one cell. So these receptors were originally thought to be very similar to a lock and key fit. And although that's in the old paradigm, a lock and key fit, it explains the process beautifully. So I'm going to use the lock and key fit as an analogy, because we don't want a degree in neurology, neither do we want a degree in biochemistry or even biology. So if you can just think of a lock and a key fit, every lock has a certain key that fits into it and opens it. If you put the wrong key and try to fit it into a lock, it won't open the lock. The key might be too fat, it might be too small, the teeth on the key might be all different or different jagged, but the lock won't open. And that's the same with receptors. So, just as a nose is programmed or designed to respond to smell, and the ear is designed to respond to sound via receptors. So every receptor on every cell is designed and created for something specific. So these trillions of cells with millions of receptors on them, covered with them, that every single one of them are designed and created to receive and transmit. To receive and transmit. They're like sense organs that sit on the surface of the cell. And we might have billions of them. And these receptors on the surface are not just sitting there waiting. They're active, they're moving, they're floating around, looking for whatever it is that I need to cause a response in me. I need to think about that a little bit. Yeah. Trillions of cells with hundreds of thousands or millions of receptors on, exquisitely designed to receive certain information above other information, and then you get a lock and key fit. The receptor then releases the chemical needed for an action to take place.
Sure. Well, Liz, I must say, I loved Candace Pert several years ago when I read about her, and Molecules of Emotion was her book, I
Yes,
think it was called.
yes.
Very, very interesting. So you've explored then how these receptors work, and they sit on all of our cells. I can't remember how many millions you said, but I think it was 70. Was it trillion? Anyway, a lot of cells.
Approximately, give or take a few.
A lot of cells in our body, all over our body, head, heart,
Yes.
gut. So could you then explore this a bit further for us? And how does this work in terms of the organs of perception? Because you are now looking at these receptors. You've spoken a little bit about the three different centers. And how does this then relate? Could you maybe go into a little bit more detail?
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Tanya. So
Thanks.
our three organs of perception, the brain, the heart, and the gut, are densely populated with receptors. So we're receiving and transmitting from these three organs of perception more than anywhere else in the body. So they are vital. Therefore, we're going to receive a lot of information through our brain and give off a lot. We'll receive a lot of information via our heart and give off a lot, transmit a lot, and also with our gut. Because I want you to think about this now. Could the millions of sense receptors on our physical heart pick up feelings from a partner or a friend or an animal or a child? We can ask ourselves, do you think this is possible? Of course it is. We've already done it. We might not be aware of it, but we've all been somewhere with a friend and picked up they're feeling sad, or they're feeling angry, or they're feeling anxious or fearful. We've all done that. We've also picked up somebody's jealousy. We've also picked up somebody's I'm liked or I'm disliked. Could the millions of receptors on our physical brain pick up thoughts from others? Of course. And our thoughts are also given out. We've already done it. We've picked up somebody's thoughts, and they've received our thoughts. And could the millions of sense receptors on our physical gut, and in fact every organ of our body, but let's stay with the second brain, the gut, have we picked up senses from others? Maybe from our partner, maybe from our spouse, maybe from a child. Do you think that's possible? Of course it is, because we've already done it. We've all felt anger coming from another. We've all felt fear and anxiety from another. And we've all felt attraction to or repulsion from another, or the rejection of another. We've all experienced this anyway. Yet are we conscious of it? Are we aware of what's going on? We are the most magnificent, extraordinary beings, and we have no idea about it. So, carry on, ask another question.
Okay, so yes, I think that's quite extraordinary, Liz. I think it's something for us all to think about and kind of sit with, because um, I know, even in terms of there's some work that I've been doing in mindfulness lately, and from a psychological aspect, just to become aware of what is going on internally brings us back to our bodies, brings us back to our senses. And so, I know that you spoke last week or the week before about those 4 steps. I think the one was self-awareness or self-observation, I think was first, in self-awareness, support, and I forget the fourth one. But this is how,
Self-awareness, number one.
yes,
Self-awareness, number
self-awareness.
one, always.
Okay.
Self-acceptance, number two.
Okay,
Yeah.
self-acceptance.
Self-awareness, self-acceptance, support. We all need support,
Yes.
whether from a friend or from a spouse or from a mentor or from a psychologist or from a minister. We all need somebody who will love us unconditionally. And then
Yes.
I'll speak at the end about the practice.
Okay, okay. All right. We'll hear about that just
Okay.
now. So I
Yes.
think let me just find where I am in my questions. I think, okay, so coming back to awareness then, what could
Yes.
we hope to uncover within ourselves if we were to become more aware and conscious? I think that's what I would like to ask.
Okay. Well, an easy answer to that would be that's the oldest question known to man. Who am I? And where did I come from? And what am I all about? But I think, oh, hello, Barbara Lee. I think a big question is, and we need to know this. Okay. Science informs us that approximately 96% is dark matter, that our universe consists of approximately 96% dark matter, which leaves 4% of light matter. Okay, remember that 4% of light matter. And then science tells us we live in what's termed a stream of consciousness. Out of this stream, we pick up, we are conscious of 5% of 4%, not 5% of 100%. We are only consciously aware of 5% of 4%. The rest is out of conscious awareness. It's all happening, and we haven't a clue what is happening. Yet it all exists. It's all there. It all exists. So, would some people like to access a little bit more of themselves? Wouldn't I like to know a little bit more about my truly magnificent being? And that, I think, is what we're looking for. I think the greatest teachers of all time have repeatedly told us, wake up. That's all. Wake up. No matter what religion, what philosophy, what culture, they all tell us exactly the same thing. Wake up. So that's what the Enneagram can help you with, to become conscious of not habitual functioning, which we've been doing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's just habit. It's just habit. And we get very good at habit. But I think the time in our universe now, the time is to be more aware, more conscious, and I would reckon more creative.
Yes. That's the word I was thinking of that you mentioned earlier. Definitely
Yes.
more creative, and alive, because
Yes.
then we are operating from our true centers of being,
Yes.
from our magnificent head center, or our magnificent heart center, or our magnificent gut center, whichever one we have been gifted with more kind of attunement.
Exactly.
So I love it, Liz. I love this teaching of yours. Um, so we've come to this point. We've now just after 7:30. I've got really only one question here. If anybody's got any questions, please ask them. I know that was quite a bit to cover, and so while you're thinking of something, we have got a question, but it's quite a long question. So I'm not quite sure if we put it up, we might not be able to see over the top of the question list. So it's from Peter James. Um,
Okay.
I think we might just be able to answer the first part. Let's just see what we can see about it. There we go.
Machine.
I remember Liz mentioned in the introductory session that her husband was a head type and that she is different. Could you please share examples of how the types give and receive communication and how to bridge the gap? Not necessarily personal examples, but general. I think let's just break it down there. I don't know if you saw that, Liz, or if you heard me. So I think his question is that he seems to remember that you mentioned your husband was a head
Mm,
type and that you are a different type. Um, how I think the essence of his question is really about if there are differences, like as he's
mm,
pointing out, one's a head type, more a head type, and one's
mm,
more a different type.
mm.
Um, is there a way to allow
Yes.
for that, allow to kind of accommodate each other, connect in a different way? How would you respond? I
Yes.
hope I'm interpreting it correctly, but I think that's the essence, particularly with communication. That seems to be what he's talking about.
Okay. Well, I know that my husband, as a head point, spends a lot of time in his head. He thinks everything through meticulously. He makes excellent decisions. He thinks carefully, logically, rationally. Now, at first, before I knew everything, knew all this, I'd already taken the action necessary, and he's still thinking it through. So I had to now wait to learn. And I learned that to respect his thought processes, because the Enneagram is a lot about respect as well and compassion. We need to have respect for each and every one of us. We're different. So he can think of things that are way above my head that I don't even go near, and I put them into practice, things that he can't do. So we work very well together along. He gives the ideas and he shares his thought processes, and I put things into practice. And that's how we accommodate. I've got lots of friends who are head points, and I respect the fact that they need all the information. They've got to think about things for a long time, slowly and carefully and methodically. And much as sometimes I'm itching to get into action, I know it's important for them. And then they also know that I'm chop, 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 and I want to get moving and sort it out, and then it's done. So it's about accommodating both. And I have lots of family members who are heart as well. And I know that they need to relate on a heart level, on a feeling level. So I can be still and be quiet and allow my feelings to emerge and be conscious of them, because they're going on anyway. That's the secret. It's all happening under the radar anyway. I need to be conscious of what exactly am I feeling? Let me tune into myself. So I've got lots, as I say, lots of family members who are heart points. So I need to, when I'm talking to them, I need to be particularly conscious of what my feelings are, because they are picking them up anyway.
That's an interesting point.
Yes, they know my feelings often better than I do.
Mm.
So there's a lot of combinations here, and a lot of, depending where you sit and where you receive and all sorts of things. There's never one flat answer to any of this. Is that helpful?
He seemed to think yes. Well, he thought we were on the right track of understanding his question. So I think that's important, Liz. I think you've really pointed out how the different types are complementary, how not to ignore our own. So say we are one type more predominantly, not to ignore the fact that we also do have a heart, we also do have a head, and to kind of to become more creative in those centers as well, to allow them to kind of come to the fore, to respect each other. So I think that's an important point. And of course, misunderstandings would probably occur, if, as you say, one is a head type and one is a heart type. However, if you understand where your partner's coming from, you can respect them and maybe learn to dance a bit differently. I think that word habitual really rings true for me, Liz. How to do things differently, not always to go dance the same tune. Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah, and I think when I'm sitting talking to my family members who are heart points, and I don't live in my heart, it's a very good thing for me to sit with them and chat with them, and I know they are hearing me from my heart to their heart. I know that. And they know that I can sense them, and the same with the head. So just because we're not aware of something doesn't mean it's not happening. It's all happening anyway.
Wow.
There's a lovely little story, if we've got a minute.
Yes.
My family will tell you that I love stories. If you look, and I use this story a lot in classes, so if you've got a 3D puzzle and you're looking at it and you're trying to find the hidden features and you're staring at it and you're looking for the hidden features, you're not likely to find them. But if you kind of pull back a bit and squint a bit and kind of look at it sideways, all of a sudden the hidden pictures emerge. Now, they were already there. Everything exists all the time, but my awareness has changed. And it's the same with the head and the heart and the gut. I'm feeling all the time anyway, but I'm not aware of it. Thoughts are passing through my head all the time anyway. I might not be aware of it. And sensing is going on all the time. Because I'll tell you very quickly if there's danger around or threat. It's happening all the time. These receptors are picking up everything all the time. I am just not conscious of it. So I need to look inside myself and become more conscious.
Yeah. And I think the word also just came to me now, to become more complete. I mean, we are whole already. I know you love to say that we are already whole. But if I'm not sorry?
Perfect, whole and complete.
Yes. So, but if I can become more aware, then I'm kind of, what word would you describe it? Because you were saying that I'm kind of, those centers are aware, they are conscious, but it's me that's not. So if I become aware, if I become conscious, then what word would you use for that? It's more integrated, maybe. I'm just thinking of the word integrated.
I think just more alive.
Just more alive.
Okay. How many of us live on automatic?
Yeah.
And it's like press button for pause or press button for play, and we're just automatic. Yeah. And it's like, where's our spontaneity? Where's our aliveness? Where's our creativity? Where's our fizziness and bubble? Where's our ingenuity? Where's our inspiration? Hello, Cameron, how lovely to see you. You know, there's just so much there. And we live these small, dull little lives. We need to break out. And I was only thinking the other day of, I don't know the percentage, but I know it's very much greater the last 50 years. The on the autistic spectrum, I mean, it's a huge spectrum, but this is a new way of perceiving life. Now that's something to think about, isn't it?
Mm.
There's a new understanding, a new perception of life, a new way of being. It's just, for me, just keep everything open.
Okay.
You know, keep it open. You don't have to believe everything you hear, and you don't have to reject everything you hear. Just keep open.
Okay. Well, Liz, we're now on 7:45, so reluctantly, I'm going to have to let you go quite soon. We haven't got any more questions, so I think could you just give us a little bit of a taster of what you're going to be talking about next week, so that hopefully.
What am I talking about next week?
I think it's the gifts, or I'm not sure if it's the
yes.
gifts or if
Yes,
it's stress
it's the
insecure.
gift.
Is it the
No,
gifts
it's the
next week?
gift. Yes, we're going to speak from
Okay.
1 through 9, what the primary gifts are. And there's a few things I want to point out there, that
Okay.
I am the gift. You are the gift. It's not something that you have. There's not you have a gift, because that implies separation. It's like you are the gift. So I'll speak about that next week.
Okay. Lovely. And now you better go and prepare, because you've got load shedding.
Yes, just now.
Okay. Thank you, Liz, for sharing this lovely cold evening with us. I hope everybody's nice and warm, and I hope you've got something to ponder about, something about what Liz has shared with us this evening. So thank you, Liz.
And I'd like to say hi to Barbara Lee and to Vicky and to all those lovely people, and
there's
to Cameron
Elaine
and
coming
Elaine.
in.
Yes, and to thank you
Got
for listening.
Geeta.
Geeta, hello Geeta. and
Isha,
Alana.
And
Suresh and Alana. Wonderful. Lovely to know that you're there. Thank you very much.
Lovely.
Lots of love.
Okay. Thank you. And think about some questions for next week, everybody. We would love to hear some more questions. Liz loves questions. It's where she can.
I do.
It tests her and she comes up with new understanding.
Yes.
Here's another one. And Cameron.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Peter James. I'm glad we could answer you, Peter.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So lovely. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Cheerio, everybody.
Okay, bye.
See you next time.